I'd like to call to order the regular meeting of the Abington School Committee for Tuesday, November 28th, 2017. Would everyone please stand for salute to the flag?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, it's time for our hearing of visitors. Do we have any visitors that would like to address us this evening? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on. Reading and approval of minutes for October 24th, 2017. We have two sets of minutes. We have, let's start with our minutes for our regular meeting. Anyone have any questions, comments? Could we have a motion to approve the minutes for October 24th?
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous. Next, moving on to our executive session minutes for October 24th, 2017. Do we have a motion to approve those minutes?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you. Second?
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, unanimous. All right, moving on to unfinished business. We looked at consideration of the Abington Public Schools participation in the school choice program for the 2018-19 school year in accordance with Chapter 71, the Education Reform Act of 1993. At the time, we tabled it until this week so people will have a chance to think about the question. Peter, would you like to share any more information?
Yeah, I'll recap this for you and give you an update on our numbers. Basically, our overall enrollment last month was up 6%. It's now up about 7% as a district. We've taken on more students in the last month, so I've provided you the update. Generally speaking, well, specifically speaking, the high school compared to this time last year is up 75 students. The middle school is up 6. The Woodsdale Elementary School is up 28. The Beaverbrook is up 4. And the pre-K is up 7 students. That's if last year we had the exact same configuration that we have today. The numbers I gave you are reflective of those increases. And so next year, with a large 8th grade class coming to the high school and a smaller 12th grade class leaving the high school, if we have the same migration of students out of the district next year that we had this year, we can reasonably anticipate 20 to 30 more students above this year at the high school. And so if we do nothing at all, that number, I'm confident, will be, the 75 that we've added at the high school level will become 100. At the same time, Abington, because of the sewerage being available in the town of Abington, has hundreds of new housing starts that will be coming on the books at some point. They're either going to come on the books, they're going to come on the books sometime over the next 2 or 3 years. These are 2 and 3 bedroom and 3 and 4 bedroom dwellings. And I say dwellings because some are condos, some are homes. But when you have multiple bedroom dwellings or multiple bedroom places for people to live, that brings more children to the town. And so on top of, over the last couple of decades, we've never had this small percentage leaving our district to go receive a private education. We have a large class coming to the high school and a small class leaving the high school, and hundreds of new housing starts on the books. And you don't know when those starts will come on to the market, when people will move in. There's no way to reasonably anticipate that. I'm very confident that our numbers will continue to grow. So for next year, the prudent thing to do is not to participate in school choice as a district in Massachusetts. Let's take care of the residents of Abington first, and then see where we are next year. And because this is an annual vote, it's not one that is forevermore. We'll come back to this next year. And so for those reasons, my recommendation would be that we opt out of school choice as a district for the 18-19 school year.
Does anyone in the committee have any questions?
No, Peter, the only question I had is at the high school level, how do those 75 students get split up amongst the 4 grades?
I could go back and look at the specific numbers. Some of this is dependent on the size of the incoming class for grade 9. So in the previous year we had 122 freshmen, and this year we have 154. In the previous year we had 111 10th graders, now we have 130. The previous year we had 123 11th graders, now we have 114. The previous year we had 92 in last year's graduating class, and this year's graduating class is at 122.
Peter, how does that 122 compare to current grade 8?
The current grade 8 is at 168. That's the transition I was talking about. That's why you can read it.
Number with it.
With some of those 168 choosing to go to the vocational school or choosing private schools, we will lose some of that 168. But that's why I gave you the number earlier, that you can reasonably anticipate that at least 20 to 30, that class will, the total population of the high school will grow by 20 or 30 because that small class is leaving and that 168 is coming in.
Does anyone else have any questions? Anyone?
Terry Sullivan behind us was wrong down, right?
All right. Then we're looking for a motion to opt out of school choice.
I'll make that motion.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. No one opposed. All right, report of subcommittees. The first one on the list here is report on the MASC-MASS Joint Conference, which Wendy and I were able to attend. It's always a very interesting conference with many different opportunities for gaining information. The sessions I was able to run into, to go to, one was on the development of the Chapter 70 formula, another on measuring school quality, fairness, fairly and comprehensively. Educating for the future, it can be done. It was a very interesting session. There was a presentation by the NEASC on NEASC 2020, Design for Improvement, and it's the changes to the NEASC process, which we are going to be undergoing shortly. There was a general session on the opioid crisis, and I was able to attend a meeting with representatives from DESE on school committee involvement in curriculum development, all of which were very interesting. I have information on all of those topics that I'd be happy to share with anyone who is interested. I did bring copies of information from one session that I attended. It's by the Mass Consortium for Innovative Educational Assessment, which I thought everyone would be interested in, since most of us have said that a one-shot standardized test doesn't really show the picture of what goes on in our schools. So I found it kind of an interesting topic, and I thought I would share information on that. But if there's anyone else on the committee that wants information on any of the other topics that I attended, I'd be happy to share that with you as well. And Wendy, I don't know if you have anything you want to share.
No, I was only there for 2 days because I had conflicts, but we were able to go to a few things together, and then we separated to kind of get a little bit more done, I guess. So I didn't bring my notes, which I usually have had in the past, but I don't know, it was very informative. Good time.
It's also a great opportunity to see what's being done in other schools around the
Definitely.
state, and to
And meet up
interact
with
with other
people.
superintendents and school committee people. All right, Anyone else have any questions or anything? All right. Moving on then to the Superintendent of Schools 2017 evaluation. We put this off from our last meeting because we were waiting for the MCAS results. They are in, and you should have in your packet the copy of Peter's goals and his self-evaluation. We are a little bit behind on this because we put it off from last meeting, and by January, Peter is supposed to have developed his goals for the upcoming year. So what I'm going to ask the committee members to do is to complete their evaluation of Peter and get those to me within the next 2 weeks, which would bring us up to December 12th, unless anyone feels that's pushing too much. I'd also like to go over how to do it because there were some questions with that last time. So if you take the copy of Peter's district goals that you have in your packet and turn to the back of the first page, you see the top part of it says mid-year progress. We have already done that. What we're looking at right now, if you go down to where it says end of year reflection, we're looking at the end of year reflection, and what you need to do for me is to fill in your response, whether he's accomplished the particular goal listed on the front side of the page, needs further action, whether it's proficient or whether it's exemplary. And there's a comments box that follows that at the top where you can put down any comments about what he's accomplished, and you can record any recommendations you might have. There's a section for that after each of the goals he has there. There is also a section that says related standards and indicators that has nothing in it. I have, what I'm going to pass out to you is a copy of the standards and indicators from DESE. What I did in the column is write down what goals they might relate to. It's optional for you whether you want to fill in what standards you think relate to his goal and how you feel he progressed in that. That's an optional part of it. If you want to fill it in, I'm going to give you the information that you can use. But the part that is really important is your evaluation of his goals and your comments. And with the permission of the committee, in order for Peter to get to work on his goals for next year, once I receive your evaluations, I will put everything together and present that at our next meeting, but I would like, with your permission, any recommendations you have for him, I would like to forward those to him so he can start working on his goals. Is there anyone that has a problem with that process? No. All right, if I can do that, then we can keep the process on schedule, even though we had to put this part of it off for 1 month. So I will, if you have any problems filling it out, you have any questions how to do it, please contact me either by email or phone, and I will walk you through how it gets done, and then I will compile everything, and it will be presented at the next school committee meeting.
Okay.
Sorry, when do you want us to forward our recommendations?
If you could get it to me within 2 weeks,
Okay.
which would bring us up to December 12th. And then that will give me a chance to get everything compiled.
Perfect. Thank you for doing this.
Okay.
This is really going to help you.
Moving on, report of the superintendent of schools.
So under my section, I'm actually going to turn it over to a couple of people that have done quite a bit of work with our data and our achievement information. And you have in your packet a PowerPoint presentation that they're going to walk us through the results of last year's MCAS administration. So, Sherry Fedorowicz, Meg Larry, Liz Gonzalez, and Diane Salvetti are going to be helping us with that. And so, first up is Sherry Fedorowicz.
Thank you. We're going to be switching back and forth. Thank you. With the presentation, because the Results this year are a little bit different because the test has changed, and I'll get into that. So we're going to be doing it a little bit different this year, but generally the same format. So we're happy to present the 2017 MCAS data here tonight. And I just want to go over some quick changes that occurred last year with the test. Grades 3 through 8 took a brand new MCAS test, which was more rigorous, and it was called the Next Gen MCAS assessment. The state actually raised the standard for the passing level of this new assessment. It's more internationally competitive, and this year grades 3 through 8 will not be receiving or did not receive an accountability rating, and therefore no level for this year, but that's only grades 3 through 8. Last year, the spring test will serve as the baseline for a new target setting for the 2018 accountability level. Although the growth scores will carry over, it's really difficult to make a historical comparison with student achievement scores. So we can do it with growth, but not with scores. However, high school ELA, high school math, and all the sciences, grades 5, 8, and at the high school level, are going to have continued this past year and will this year with the legacy test, which really means it's the standard MCAS test that has been used. Quick distinction to make. This slide shows that although for the legacy test here on the left, this is the old version, this is also what the high school is continuing to use. We had the advanced proficient needs improvement and warning, so that's still being used for some of the grades and some of the topics. But the next generation MCAS is now exceeding expectations, partially meeting or not meeting expectations. However, we cannot, because of the rigor of the new tests and the standard increasing in terms of the passing level, these two are not equal. So it's more rigorous. There's less students in exceeding expectations and meeting expectations than what we saw in advanced and proficient, generally on the test across the board and the state. So we're first going to review the grades 3 through 8 math, ELA, and science for the aggregate, and students with disabilities population. We're doing the students with disabilities population because previously that was the reason for our level 3, and so we really hone in and focus on this population along with our aggregate. And then the high school is going to present their information. So first we're going to review math, and the bar graphs show student achievement. So this is the one that we cannot historically compare from year to year. This is the new test for grades 3 through 8. And for grade 3 math, 31% of the students met or exceeded the expectations compared to the state, which was 49%. So we performed 18% below the state average for grade 3. In grade 4, we outperformed the state, or did better than the state, by 5%. In math grade 5, again, we outperformed the state, but by 10%. Grade 6, again, we outperformed the state and outperformed by 11%.
In grade 7, although we did not have as many students meeting or exceeding expectations as the state, we had fewer students not meeting expectations. In grade 8, our results almost paralleled those of grade 7, except we had the same amount of students in the exceeding expectation category as the state.
For the next generation MCAS results for students with disabilities, on average, for the elementary school, we performed 6% but below the state average for students with disabilities.
In our grade 7 and 8 population, our students with disabilities performed fairly similar to each other, having approximately 17% fewer students not meeting expectations in the state.
The next slide is our growth slide, and this is what we can compare historically. The elementary school level showed significant growth this past year in all grade levels 4 through 6. Just a reminder, grade 3 does not have growth just because the state starts it in grade 4 and continues up. All elementary school grades showed significantly higher growth and achievement and were similar to the state growth. Hence, all of the elementary, as you can see, is in the good quadrant, the higher growth and higher achievement level.
And although our 7th and 8th graders showed less growth than the state, they were higher achievers than the state.
Next, we're going to look at ELA. Grade 3 performed only 1% below the state average in ELA. In grade 4, we outperformed or did better than the state by 7% in ELA. In grade 5, again, we outperformed the state, but by 13% above the state average. In grade 6, we also outperformed the state by 11%.
So in grade 7, 45% of Abington students met or exceeded expectations, 5% fewer than the students across the state of Massachusetts. In grade 8, 52% of Abington students met or exceeded expectations. That's 3% better than the students in the state of Massachusetts on average.
For students with disabilities in ELA, at the elementary level, we are on average 4% below the state level.
And when we take a look at grade 7 and grade 8, we see our students are partially meeting expectation at a comparable rate to the state.
The next slide again shows growth. And at the elementary level, we showed significant growth and achievement, and we again outscored the state by an average of 10%. All of the elementary school, again, is in the upper right quadrant, showing higher growth and achievement than the state.
So the growth here in grades 7 and 8 is slightly below that of the state. One reason that we can attribute our performance to is these are the first years that we are taking a test that is a park-based test, in that the items and the writing items are substantially different. We did not debut any of those items in a practice session, so this will reflect the first encounters that our students are having with these types of writing assessments. You'll see that we're very close to the state, and in future years should meet or exceed the state.
Okay, our recommendations for elementary and middle school, starting with math. To use last year's computer-based and paper-based test, next generation test, so that students have practice not only taking the test, but taking it online. Our third graders this past year was the first time that they took an online test, and we really need to look at working on additional technology skills and in taking the exam, because some of the kids are still basically learning digital literacy and how to work with a computer. We're going to work with online practice tests with the digital assessment that comes with the Math and Visions program. We're doing more student-centered approaches to learning through centers and activities in content areas. Increased digital literacy, like I was saying, but we do need more supports in addition to what we have to work with the students so that they understand how to click a mouse, how to navigate the pages, and how to write on the computer. We're also looking at math half-days, which are implemented with targeted instruction, which is based on MCAS assessment, analysis, and monitoring.
At the middle school, we share a lot of the same concerns with taking an online test as the elementary schools. It's the students' first time. It's very difficult to take an online math test, so it's really about practicing and having the students get used to still writing on paper and then copying their results onto the computer. And one of the things that's unique to that is they have what they call an equation editor. So it's really about how do I put a fraction into the computer, how do I put that notation correctly. So it's really about taking practice tests and getting used to online equation editors so that the students feel comfortable with that type of testing environment. In addition, because the test does have different types of questions, it's about practice with looking at different types of responses, like selected responses. It's also very important for us to look into the scheduling of common department time for the middle school so that teachers have that opportunity to collaborate, to analyze data, share resources, and talk about strategies that help close gaps.
Recommendations for elementary, middle school for ELA. Again, ELA is similar to math in that we need to take more time working with the practice tests online. Our new Wonders program has a great component, which is online assessments, which very closely mimic the next-gen MCAS tests. We've moved away from the teacher-centered basal model to a balanced literacy reading model, which also incorporates a workshop model. So this allows for more increased independent reading. We're working on building reading stamina and providing a student-centered learning model of instruction. As with math, we're working with the digital literacy for the students, so they know how to enter their information into the computer and understand that the technology component is also a big component of the next gen MCAS test.
Middle school students could read a wider variety of literary and nonfiction texts. They could practice using evidence from the text with rationales and writing creatively from various points of view. We would like to pilot and replace our 2006 textbook series in grades 6 through 9 with a digital platform. The item types for writing are substantially different. Instead of the traditional open response and long composition, students at these grades are doing comparative literature analyses where they take two texts, fiction and poetry, drama and fiction, and looking for common elements. In nonfiction, they are juggling multiple items in nonfiction and looking to form an argument using those multiple texts as evidence. And the new one, writing creatively from various points of view, they'll read a brief narrative and then retell the story from another character's point of view or continuous story. So because these are just not based on novel reading and short story reading, we are looking to provide students with updated texts and also the notion of word processing. It's a different form of drafting. They don't necessarily write on paper and transfer, but they're going to compose within a text box that looks different than a standard Word document. The state hasn't released a lot of practice tests or practice items for us to work with, so it's important that we have a text series that has comparable work for us to look at.
Okay, foundations, elementary school, middle school, math and ELA. Grade 4, for taking the online test for the first time. Students not only needed to know the math and ELA content, but also in navigating the actual website and understanding that as they type in the box, it does expand, and just teaching some of the basics. Grades 3 through 6 for taking the more rigorous assessment, the next gen MCAS. Continued high growth and high achievement at the elementary level, and commending the teachers for teaching multiple subject areas and having these assessments in multiple areas. So most of our students performed above the state level in this more rigorous MCAS test. And also we had a lot going on last year, piloting 3 ELA programs, new principals, moving buildings. There was a lot of stuff going on, so I think our results are pretty good considering we had a lot of moving parts last year.
And the items in which the middle school students did most well on are the languages that, the items that are common to both sets of tests. What does this word mean? Where do you find the meaning of the word in the text? On those common items, our students did as well or better than the state.
In terms of math,
Sorry,
the grade 7 students did best. Their strength was in expressions and equations, and grade 8 did best on functions, which is really important because that's the main focus for grade 8 for the framework, so it was a good thing to see.
I'm going to turn it over to Diane.
The grade 5 and 8 MCAS is an integrated test based on the following standards: physical, life, earth and space science, and technology and engineering, which is taught throughout the year in grades K through 8. The grade 5 test is based on the K through 5 standards, and the grade 8 test is based on the 6 through 8 standards. The high school science MCAS is a subject-specific test, and our students, as well as most of the students in Massachusetts, take the biology test.
Okay, results for the grade 5's MCAS test. In grade 5, the students performed approximately 7% below the state average.
In the grade 8 test, 42% of our students received an advanced or proficient score as compared to the state at 40%. At the high school level, 82% of our students received an advanced or proficient score as compared to the state at 75%.
For students with disabilities, we performed at grade 5, 4% below the state average.
At grade 8, our students performed 6% below the state average, and at the high school, our students performed 5% below the state average.
The grade 10 test in high school is the legacy test, so it goes back to the needs improvement, failing, proficient, and advanced categories. At grade 10, we showed great success. This is the first year we had over 90% of the advanced proficient categories. We showed a 10% increase from last year, whereas the state only showed a 1% increase from last year. Our high needs students outperformed the state in all achievement levels. 81% of our high needs students scored in the advanced and proficient category as compared to 58% for the state. Our students show both higher growth and higher achievement than the state students.
The grade 10 ELA test is also a legacy test, so it uses the language we're most familiar with. 96% of the students in Abington scored advanced and proficient. That is the highest advanced and proficient score we have had. And we outscored Massachusetts students by 5% in that category. For our high needs students, 91% of our students in high needs categories were in advanced and proficient. 79% of Massachusetts high needs students were there. So this is a real tribute to the amount of intervention that has been going on with these students throughout their career in Abington Public Schools, and the integration and inclusion of students in the academic support that they receive as well. Our growth is at, our median growth is at 70%, which is higher than the state's at 50. And what we're looking at here is 5 years ago, we were in the high achievement, low growth. And within 5 years, we went from a 30% median growth to a 70% median growth. It's an exceptionally strong class, but we have been really reviewing data and using common planning time in a way to really maximize the ability to grow our students' capacity and for them to realize that they should set their goals in higher places. We have our commendations and recommendations next, and I'll turn it over to science.
So as stated earlier, this is the last year in which our students will take their science MCAS test based on the old frameworks.
For our elementary recommendation, we're working the transition towards the next generation MCAS and also incorporating STEAM this year. So the next gen, right now we're a little bit in limbo between old test and standards and the new standards that are being tested. So by next year, we should be all aligned.
So we want to continue to build an inquiry-based science curriculum with materials aligned to the new frameworks. And we want to continue to incorporate the MCAS questions throughout the curriculum and to prioritize professional development at the middle school level as we continue to transfer to the new frameworks.
In terms of math, our current freshmen took the 8th grade test online last year. And so they'll be our first ones who have to take the next gen online. So we want to continue that practice that we started with them last year of taking the online exams, working with the equation editor, and increasing the rigor to the questions to match the rigor of the test. In addition to working with the selected response questions, which is something they're not as familiar with. So we want to increase not only the question type, but the rigor of each question.
For English language arts, in order to prepare for next generation MCAS, our students will be working with new writing tasks in new writing rubrics. So it's not only the construction of the item, but how we assess student performance that is going to change. The multiple choice questions are two-part, and that's not going to be the difficult transition. What's going to be the difficult transition is the new writing tasks. We don't have a deep fund of writing items from the state, as we have had with MCAS, so we'll be developing those ourselves. In order to prepare for testing on a digital platform, we need to practice with that. We'll have the benefit of is when our current 10th graders, when our current freshmen when the current 8th graders take the test, they will have already had the 8th grade testing experience. So one of the reasons they're holding off the high school switch to next gen is so that students will have the experience with at least 1 year of taking the test on a computer platform. But we are also considering a textbook series up through grade 9 with digital reading and writing. Commendations. This year for grade 5 and 6 we have dedicated time built into the elementary schedule, and we have the new STEAM program that will help supplement our STEM and engineering for the new standards.
We were so fortunate to be able to adopt a 6th through 8 science series that are in line with the new science frameworks. At the high school level, 82% of our students received an advanced or proficient grade, moving students out of the needs improvement category. And at the high school level, students perform better than the state in the needs improvement and the failing categories.
In terms of math, one of the things that has been most crucial for us is the common planning time. It allows for the teachers to collaborate on common assessments, share best teaching strategies, which has been pivotal in making the growth we have over the past 3 years. It's the first time we've scored over 90% in the combined levels of advanced and proficient. And one of the things that's really important is the attention given to the education of our high needs students has led to the improvement of the scores for all of our students.
Abington students have demonstrated significant growth. I've mentioned this before, with the median student growth profile of 70%, higher by 20% than the state of Massachusetts. Our student scores in every item type on every standard exceeded those of Massachusetts students. All students who were in level 1, grade 9, scored advanced in grade 10. Every one of them. And this is the point where we would like to share our great news. Acting Commissioner Jeff Wilson commended Abington High School as one of 7 high schools across the state for high achievement, making strong progress, or narrowing proficiency gaps. He said, "I'm proud to recognize these schools for their steadfast work in helping their students meet challenging goals." And it's at this time that we want to give our thanks to everyone in Abington who's contributed to our students' success. From their parents, who are, after all, are all our students' very first teachers, and all our teachers from pre-K up through every grade, tested or not, and across every content area, tested or not, for valuing literacy, for valuing reading and writing in their content area, for valuing inquiry and problem solving. We'd like to thank the administration for affording us the time in the school day and also in common planning periods for conducting data analysis using real student work on school time, and also for the ability to plan and comment on a regular basis, not something that happens on the occasional half day, but something that happens at the high school on a bi-weekly basis. Everything that all of you have done and enabled us to do helps us to achieve this success, and you should share in the commendation as well. Thank you. And at this time, we open the floor for discussion.
First of all, I'd like to say thank you to all of you. Nice presentation and great news. Does anyone have any questions for?
I mean, not so much a question, it's more, I guess more of a comment. So it factors more on the recommendations part of it, because the numbers are the numbers. And it's basically, so I know, have you had the chance though to talk with other districts that may have been higher than us, what they're doing to help formulate some of those recommendations to improve?
Yes, actually. And I think that's something that's continuous, and you look at other districts, or I talk to people in other districts that are high performing, low performing, and you take what you can from them. A lot of times we also look at schools that are very similar to ourselves. There are regional meetings that we attend when we have opportunities to talk. There are coaches meetings, literacy coaches meeting, math coaches meeting, and just the ability to outreach to other administrators and teachers in other districts, just because South Shore, you tend to get to know a lot of people, and so there's a lot of sharing of information.
Great, thanks.
I could also add, on the secondary level, there are South Shore department head groups that meet in person and start email chains to share and exchange information. Bridgewater State University has been instrumental in holding math and computer science and English language arts collaborative meetings quarterly, so that we can meet with teachers across the region, and also with
professors of Bridgewater who can share their work with us, making sure we're preparing students to be college and career ready.
I know, Matt, as soon as the results came out, the Southeastern Massachusetts Mathematics Chairpersons Association got together to discuss how to interpret what are the changes between the MCAS and the Next Gen, and to be able to share basically how to interpret the results and share them with our communities, and then now to come back and analyze them in terms of how different groups did better and what other strategies people are using.
Thank you.
Just following up with Chris on district, going back to the 3rd grade math MCAS, can that be extrapolated to the amount of technology that we have here versus similar towns we may have done with the same type of distribution across those 4 categories, have the same type of technology, or maybe less, or maybe more? How does that?
I was kind of hoping somebody would ask this question. So actually, the grade 3 took the paper test last year. Grade 4 started the online test. One of the issues that we found and why the data was so late this year and why the results for Peter are so late is that we didn't get the scores till about a month ago.
As a state.
As a state. So basically, there's a few things that happened. They provided us with, the state provided us with practice tests for the students. But one of the main issues that we had is that some of the items that we practiced with did not necessarily transfer on the paper test the way the students had seen them in the practice test. For example, third graders needed to bubble in the answers. One of the items was the students needed to bubble from left to right instead of the standard right to left. In addition, decimal points were added to the answers, and 3rd grade does not do decimal points. We had 3rd graders looking at filling in decimal points that they didn't know how to bubble in the sheet that had a decimal point. The state actually provided data early on, but then retracted it and examined, I want to say about 50%, they had to regrade the grade 3 math tests by hand. Abington was not one of those districts selected to be regraded. So I think that there were a lot of factors involved that don't necessarily reflect content pieces, because we have in the past seen growth with the grade 3 math, but it was a significant change this year, and I think it was due to technicalities. Mrs. Innie, Mrs. Innie worked very hard with Mr. Hawes last year, working with teachers and students as well with the grade 3 MCAS, and there were, I know that Mrs. Innie had even called the state to try and get them to regrade by hand our grade 3 results. So would you like to add anything?
Call just to ask if they could give easier directions for the kids. So I wish I could draw it on the board. So picture that kids are used to in multiple choice going across, A, B, C, D. Instead, on some questions, not all, it was a vertical, empty space, decimal, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, plus the boxes to fill in. They didn't know what to do. The directions were 3/4 of a page long at the beginning of the test on how to fill that in. And while the test says you can give clarification as many times as they ask, you really didn't have kids saying, hi, could you read the directions on that first page? I don't know how to bubble this in. And you can walk around, but you can't tell them what to do. So you just look and go, oh no, but you can't show that because you have to have no expression. And that wasn't just here, that was a lot of places. That was a big piece, like at a regional principals meeting, that was a big discussion about, oh, if we only all take it on a computer, we wouldn't have had that issue.
Here you go, Mrs. Innie.
There we go, there it is. So it's such a simple little thing.
So
it's like, oh no.
Students went from left to right to left, and then you have these decimal points here, and then filling in vertically down, which was, for a 3rd grader,
their first time, and you'd see them like they had the answer on there, but yet
it couldn't transfer to this, and so that was kind of a surprise for us. So
that shouldn't happen again, because 3rd grade's going to take it online. Is that right, Mr. Haas?
That's right.
You've been doing a lot of work with that this year already.
Yes.
Thank you for asking that question, because I really wanted to tell you about it. I think we all did.
I have one more question on the grade 7 technology part. Is there any specific parts of the test that were much weaker? Seems like you didn't have as many upper level scores versus the lower level scores. Is there a particular part of the test that was answered more weakly, I guess, than
As
other
far
parts?
as the technology?
Yeah.
Let me see if I have that right here. The technology part, we scored 68%, and the state scored 66%.
Okay, I guess I'm looking at the advanced where it was 7 versus 17%, so there must have been something in there that, any part of the test that was,
Like when
Are
you
you
did
talking about
your
taking the
analysis,
test
did you
online?
notice that the kids scored lower in a certain content area?
Earth and space science was the lowest at 59%, physical science 64, life 66, and the engineering 68. So they performed better in that, those strands.
now how the engineering, you said 68%, but how'd that compare to the state average?
68 for us, 66 for the state.
Thank you.
And with the transition to the new standards, what we're finding as well is that they will, the state will sometimes, one year they'll ask questions very heavy in physical science, and then next year, and not so much in, say, life sciences, but the next year it'll switch. It'll be heavy in life sciences, but not physical sciences. And it's more the transition to the new standards. So we're looking forward to it finally being 100% with the new standards, because part of it is a guessing game, and you hit all your standards, and
But
it's a moving target.
You might want to explain it's no different from when we first rolled out MCAS, back in the 90s, that it's the same trials and tribulations back then, and now we're just going through it again because they've revamped the exam.
So I can certainly say that our numbers improved once we had students who started the testing at grade 3 and took the test in that format all the way up to grade 10. That's when we really saw the growth in advanced and proficient students, because they had seen these types of items and experienced these types of testing conditions. So there's real learning curve as students move through elementary and middle to their final competency test in grade 10. And we probably will see something very similar with the next gen MCAS.
I think one of the things with the change in the frameworks that we're going to see as the next gen MCAS comes through the high schools is that we used to, in the last set of frameworks, we had 5 categories. Now there's 18 at the high school. And so you have 1 or 2 questions in each section, but it's considered a separate category. So it's those things that you have to look at in terms of how are they really split up when you say, well, we didn't do well in this category, but it was 1 question on the test. So it's kind of really looking at that data, which is why the CBT and having that time to be able to sit down with your teachers is so important.
I have one more thing, just 'cause I'm just looking at the screen. How would something like that be handled for like students with, like a student with a disability? Like how, like to Ms. Cindy's point of just nobody wants to go over 3/4 of a page of the directions again. So how is that best handled in that situation?
Well, that depends on their IEPs.
So what happens in educational plans, we have a page called accommodations, and there's specific accommodations for MCAS. And what we started doing last year was, I'll call it a bridge year. There were all different changes to the accommodations as well as the state was transitioning. So there were accommodations, there were features, and there were universal combination of features accommodations. So an example was, in the past, only people with a special education plan could have directions clarified. And what clarified means is you can read them as many times as they ask. Now everyone could have directions clarified and read as many times as they needed. So that's no longer an accommodation, that's a universal. Accommodation would be some students maybe aren't able to handle the computer piece, particularly in math where you can use scrap paper until they all learn how to use a protractor, whatever else online, and Turnitin, and everything else they use. So as there are meetings with parents and guardians, you can go through all the accommodations. They're all available on the Department of Education's website, so you can look and see what they are, and whatever is chosen has to be what the child needs and uses regularly. You can't just throw an accommodation or something out there at the last second. So an example could be people who aren't able to handle the scrap paper piece and the online could do it all on paper, maybe. Or it can be that someone can be that helps scribe to point, tracking, so it can be for kids with a hard time focusing on all this stuff on one page. Someone can be next to the person or a small group, and they can be, we're on number 5. But you have to group kids then, which we did a lot of work last year on grouping by pacing, because you don't want someone who's super speedy or who's a rushing person with someone who's very methodical, because then kids worry about, am I fast enough, slow enough? That's actually an accommodation about pacing together. So you can say, we're all on number 5. Everybody, you can have some pieces on the math read aloud, because ratio does not look like ratio when you read it. So those are some of the accommodations. It's very individualized on students. And there are also features for English language learners, not just special education students. So if you, and that also is taken into account, because if you're a first-year student, always amazing to me in the middle school and high school, you come here, you barely know English, you have to learn everything. You're taking a test and being held accountable, particularly in math. And you do a lot of hard work, particularly in those grades when kids come in and have different levels of education. So those are features that you can select and say, this group needs more time. It's an untimed test. Don't know if that will change, but you can't take it the next day, but you can do a session all in that same day. Those are some of the accommodations that there are. In the future, there will be read aloud on the computer. There is highlighting for all. That's an all people thing. So where it used to be very narrow for special education student services, the state has recognized that these are beneficial for many, and it really depends on each student and what they need. So there's a much more variety. And last year, people at educational plans might see 3H accommodation meant the same as number 2. So that's also something different. And when families get their results, it will show what accommodations they had, so you can know what was in place. And each year you're looking to see what was needed and what wasn't. Sometimes kids will say, you know what, I don't need that. So I already know how to do that. And there's a place for that too. Kids who
So it's
don't
all in
use it.
accordance with their IEP.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
Really important.
Anyone else have any questions? All right, thank you very much, ladies. You did a wonderful job.
So I just say that obviously there's a lot to celebrate, and there's a lot of work left to do. And I want to thank Sherry and Liz and Diane and Meg for the presentation. And I think you said it very well. It's a district-wide, community-wide effort. So they aren't born in September of any given school year. And it's our responsibility to continue to push the grades upwards, the achievement upwards. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The energy services lease agreement. If you have any energy left, this would be a fun thing to read thoroughly and get your dictionary and your thesaurus and go through all of the terms. Having said that, this has been reviewed by town council. Actually, the attorney from Koppelman and Page specializes in energy procurement, and we also, out of the building project, there was an energy consultant that was paid to work through the bid process and the procurement of this energy services and lease agreement. This is the agreement for the photovoltaic array with solar panels that will go on top of Abington High School. When people drive by and see them, some people are going to like them. Some people are going to say that they don't like them. They are a green use of the roof and harvesting energy. And it's our responsibility as a school system, I think, to be forward-thinking and involved in those types of projects. And they will annually save us, it's anticipated, $40,000 a year. And that's somebody's salary. We will make and we'll produce 0.5 megawatt or 500 kilowatt hours of energy with the system. We will still have to pay about 8 cents a kilowatt hour for that generation because we are a part of the grid, and that's how it works. If you're going to be a part of the grid and at some point use energy, they do charge delivery charges. The extra that we produce will cost us annually a couple $100, but overwhelmingly that $40,000 number is a real number. You know that this building is going to cost us more in electricity than we've ever experienced because it's not the lights, it's actually the heating and ventilation system that uses the majority of the energy with the fans that it takes to run that. And this is a way to help defray those costs along with a power purchasing agreement that we're involved with the town of Abington that will hopefully save us another approximately $60,000 to $70,000 to help offset those additional costs. So a lot of work has been done on this over the last, how long has it been, Felicia? A year and a half? About a year and a half. You've heard about alternatives for parking spaces with photovoltaic arrays. This is the agreement for one for the roof. The one for the parking stations was not cost effective for us or the solar companies because of the construction of the parking lots. And so if people have questions, I'll answer questions. If the committee is ready to approve this, I'll be looking for approval of this. In the end, they'll have to sign off on it. If you want to wait, you can also wait. I'll leave it up to the committee.
All right, does anyone on the committee have any questions for Peter?
No, you mentioned that town council has reviewed this, and I'm going to defer to town council at this time.
And I need to tell you, I mean, we spent hours in conference calls working through this, and this was a town council. This is a person who's specific to energy agreements, so that's his speciality.
Does the committee feel ready to vote on this evening? I can vote on it.
I think I'm good.
Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve. Is that all right? Okay, motion to approve.
Yes.
We have a second? I'll second it. All right, all in favor?
Aye.
That's unanimous.
Thank you.
All right, next we're moving on to the report of the Assistant Superintendent for Pupil Personnel Services.
Good evening. So you heard a lot, and the ladies did a wonderful job presentation, so a lot of next-gen MCAS data analysis has been taking place. The technology focus, K2 ELA, as well as our new ELA Wonders, and also just a real, a variety of trainings have been taking place so far. We also have some upcoming regarding the ALICE training, which is the Federal Homeland Security Department training that's going to be taking place in the coming months. Our crisis prevention intervention actually was held recently and will be ongoing throughout the year. So that's in place. And then a variety of social emotional as well as executive functioning and special ed trainings, etc. So I'll keep updating you all as we progress. Any questions on in-service? I know we send out information regarding what's going on. Any thoughts, questions on that? All right, great. The next one, as you all saw, you were able to take a look at the school calendar. So we had a variety of our staff. It goes through our curriculum and professional development councils, administrative teams, our guidance, because we have to make sure there's no conflicts with all the testing that takes place throughout the year. So if you take a look, you'll see in September for our next school year, we have a half-day schedule on the 13th. We also worked as a group to take a look at the October date. There's a big technology focus that, as you are aware, because the superintendent would like to move to a one-to-one initiative, so we've been putting a lot of effort into that area. And so MassQ State Technology Conference actually takes place during that time. And so the goal of our groups was really to have more staff and teams attending that and not have to pay for substitutes. so it worked out well. So that's why we moved the date to the 17th when the MassQ Technology State Conference is taking place.
And
In,
you're going to interrupt it here?
yes,
Okay, didn't know this was coming.
yes, because it came today.
Yeah, well, the problem with, that's the thing we want to do so that we can get people to that MassQ conference in an efficient way. The problem with that is that next year there's going to be a major state and federal election on November the 6th. And the town of Abington needs a home to have that. And this is most likely the best place for them to do that. And with the number of people coming and going with kids, it's highly likely we'll need to use the November 6th as a professional development day so that we can best accommodate the state and federal elections.
And when will that be decided by the town?
So the problem with deciding that right now is that, you know, there could be another option out there. I don't think there is. There's another election that's going to take place on the 18th of September. That'll be the primaries. They haven't, although they've set the date of the 18th, they're likely going to change that. And so I'm just waiting for everything to be finalized so that, you know, once we publish the schedule, or once I ask you to consider the schedule, then we publish it, then we're done. And so it's hopefully they'll finalize that. November the 6th is not going to move. I'm just waiting on the 18th because the town's looking to have the election in a consistent place. So if we have it on the 6th, we'd also have that primary on the 18th. We want to get through the logistics of having a full day of school on the 18th around that primary, which is not there's not much of a turnout anticipated on those primary days. So that's in the works. When that's all figured out, then we can bring it back. Does that make sense? Clear as mud?
Clear as mud. Yep. So we'll just wait to hear back from you on if November 6th is a definite, and we have to do that.
Yep.
Okay. And then December, we have December 11th.
We don't have to do anything. We can do whatever we want. It just doesn't make sense to have a federal election here. We're not going to want to do that and have open session with 1,200 people here. So
I mean, in theory, where would people vote?
that's the problem.
It's not like the gym is off to the side like
Correct.
it used to be, now out of the way, so.
Correct.
Well, at one point you were talking about the senior center.
Yeah, that
You
won't
know,
work.
I meant if it was
Beaverbrook.
here, where would people vote?
Right.
Right, and that's the other thing. The senior center didn't work out because of the railroad crossing. The Frollo doesn't work because it's not completely handicap accessible. Because although there's a ramp, it opens into a stairwell.
So we were trying to just, this is a draft, but we were just trying to look at the variety of dates because that was the unknown. So if that's something that we have to do, then naturally it'll be, the full day will be on November 6th. But the staff and all the teams that work together on viewing this were really excited because of the technology piece. But we may just have to, shift that and have substitutes come in and send teams. So that's always workable as well.
I hate letting that drive this. At the same time, I don't know how to avoid it.
So we'll keep you posted. So December 11th, January 25th, and February 1st are the following half days. We have 2 in March 7th and 27th. We're trying to, we'll get back to you actually on March because the state hasn't come out yet with the ELA 10th grade exam week. And it's hard because every year they switch the weeks. So there's not a consistent one that we can stay with. So if needed, we may need to move it to the 20th. So we're just waiting for the state to publicize that and we'll be able to confirm that. We're trying to avoid April because number one, there's just so much MCAS testing that takes place in April, and then we also have the vacation. And then we are basically done.
May 9th.
Yeah, it says the 9th. It's not highlighted.
Yeah, okay. May 9th is not highlighted.
That's my fault, sorry.
Okay, because I'm like, are you sure there's no May? We always have a May.
I know.
I didn't want to highlight that, Teresa. Okay, but there is an error, but if you just circle May 9th, so, but it's
We'll be
still,
fixing this count.
it's correct, still a draft.
So I should
So-
say it's coming back.
Can I just mention one thing, because it's still in a draft, and this is more parent perspective talking, just things I've heard in the past. Is there and there may be a reason for it, so that's what I'm asking. So January 25th, February 1st are 5 school days apart. Is there a reason why it's got to be back-to-back weeks?
Yeah, the piece was really about the consistency, is the staff find that so much is broken up that if you get into those two particular, in some cases you have a snow day, so that's a driving force, but also is if they're working on a certain area, they want to have the back-to-back to keep the motivation moving. So that's a big, and that's something that they really stressed. We were actually in the classroom having these conversations about, making sure it's consistent that it's building-based, or it's a district-wide focus, not have a district-wide one month and then the following month, which is week to week, switch it. But basically, we're really limited on time, and so as creative as we've been with common planning time, we're also so limited on faculty time, on common planning time, on in-service time, and so that's the rationale behind it. But if there's something that is concerning to people, we certainly can relook at it.
Well, not so much concern, I think just, it's one of those.
The why.
Yeah. Oh, another one? You know what I mean? Like that, it's
Yep.
it's that reaction, so.
Yeah. So we have 7 half-days throughout the year, and then we have 1 full day. So any questions? It's a draft. We will get back to you on what's going on with the November, and then when the state publicizes the March, we'll be able to finalize. Okay? And then the last piece is we have our coordinated program review this year, and we have our DESC representative coming for our pre-CPR meeting on January 29th, and they'll be meeting with a variety of us regarding that. And I just want to thank our staff, because it's a lot of work that goes into these audits, and this year in particular is a lot between all the coordinated program review for ELL, Title I, Special Ed, all of Civil Rights. We also just submitted everything for our preschool audit as well under NIAC, and then we're starting the training December 13th through the 15th, which is just a couple weeks away, for NEASC. So we just seem to be having a lot at once, but at the same time it's exciting, because it's, I always say it's like having company. When you have company, you're always getting your house in order. It's the same thing as an audit. Really is a great place to get everything in order, and then you're able to showcase and be recognized for your strengths, and then whatever areas that we may need work on, we're able to make those changes and then move forward. So Deborah Conover, who's lovely, she's going to be coming to us, meeting with us, and then a team from the DESC will be coming again in March, the 26th to the 30th, and conducting the site visit. So any questions on that? All right, great, thank you.
Report of the Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance.
Thank you. In your packet, you have a copy of the most up-to-date final FY18 budget. That's after the hiring that we've done, people leaving, people coming in, and the final budget that was voted at town meeting of $21,908,345. And that's the budget that, the document that FY19 will be built off of. Any questions on that? School building committee update. As you came in this evening, you came through the latest update to the site, and that's the new parking lot off of Glenowitz Way. It's the new Abington High School student parking lot. And we blasted out a number of emails last week, and I know they did throughout the schools, but I just want to reiterate the traffic pattern for people. When you come in, the first entrance the only entrance off of Glenowitz Way into the school site, that's a two-way site. That's a two-way entrance. And the site is two-way until you get to the crosswalk at the preschool entrance. So there's a crosswalk where the preschool entrance is, and it's also where the turf fields start. So you can come into the turf field lot and come back out from the turf field lot onto Glenwood's Way. Or you can go around the back of the building, around the middle school side, and exit to the roundabout. There continues to be no entrance onto the site from the roundabout by the entrance to Town Hall, the Town Hall complex. So the high school side, if you will, is two-way. From the preschool, around the gymnasium, auditorium, behind the gym, to the middle school drop-off, middle school site aside is one way. So we're, that's not a change. Obviously the change is to the high school side. We will have more line painting done and some signs turned around that are facing the wrong way since the beginning of the year. So we had our first day of that yesterday, and after yesterday, and after observing students and staff coming in and buses coming in and leaving, we did make some changes to some curbing, and that actually happened today. So more in areas that were made too narrow for, I will say, inexperienced drivers to make a turn. So we changed that, and then to the bus entrance also, that was wide enough for the bus, but there was concern around when there's snow. So we were able to make that a little wider. Site work continues. They're working on the field, which is going to be a grass field where the dirt pile used to be. And they're hoping to have that completed by the end of December and be off-site. So builders will be plans to be off-site and done with any major construction by the end of December. They will be back in the spring to do additional seeding of both grass fields. We continue to have work done within the building. Punch list items that are being done mostly after the school day. And one thing that we have had issues with, we are continuing to work with the HVAC contractor and the programmer, is around different temperatures in different rooms. And we actually had some people out last week, and they were able to identify some room sensors that needed to be moved, or that were programmed incorrectly or needed to be adjusted. So I think we're seeing some improvement in that area, but it's something that we're continuing to work on and get information back from classrooms. And to do a photovoltaic update, we had the contract documents today. We've been already meeting with the developer that will be on site, plans to be on site the end of December. We should start seeing deliveries of supplies for photovoltaic coming on site in the next couple of weeks. And that work will begin, they're anticipating the end of December, and hope to have the mechanical completion.
Substantial completion by March.
By the end of March, which means that we're up and running by the end of March.
We're going to try to capture the summer months when it's most productive. Oh, and this will also be under, if anybody's paying attention to what's happening, this should be under SREX 2, which is, we should be able to do this in the current cap. You will be hearing a lot about smart development, and so this was written both ways, depending on which way the state we need to go, depending on the cap with that, but you should be under SREX 2. I don't know what that stands for.
Okay, thank you. Does anyone have any questions for Felicia? All right. Moving on, new business and establishing of the next school committee meeting dates. We do not have a meeting in December, but we have two in January. Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018, at 7 o'clock, we'll have our regular monthly meeting with a preliminary fiscal year 2019 budget hearing at 7:30. On Tuesday, January 23rd, 2018, at 7 o'clock, we'll have our regular monthly meeting. Informational items.
Under dates to remember, December 6th is the Green Wave Boosters meeting here at 7 p.m. On the 12th, we have our in-service early release. On the 14th, there's a holiday concert in our new auditorium. You know what this is missing? This is missing the opening of Oliver, which opens November 30th. Thursday, November 30th. Yep. On December 15th, we have the Abington Community Band at Island Grove and the Abington Town Choir in the new auditorium at Abington High School at 7 p.m. On the 20th, grades 5 and 6 holiday concert here in the new auditorium at the middle high school. On the 21st, the 7th and 8th grade holiday concert, again in the new auditorium. December 25th, which is Monday, we've got obviously our holiday break through January 1st. January 2nd is our next school committee meeting, which you've already made us aware of, and that will include our FY19 preliminary budget hearing at 7:30 p.m.
Can I add one thing? So this is going to be a plug. Danielle, feel free. On January 5th, I know last month, I think it was last month, we talked about everything the AEF does. They're having one of their big fundraisers, their trivia night on January 5th, which is the Friday after the second meeting. I know it's after the meeting, but it'll be tight by then. So the KFC on Hancock Street.
Flyers are going home.
Yeah,
Thursday
flyers are
and
going
Friday.
home this week. I saw in the schools, so just let everybody know.
I think that they're doing 4 fewer tables. It was a little crowded last year. We went back and forth between doing it at the KFC and Emerald Hall. So it will, they're already halfway sold out and the flyers just went home. So we're really trying to push, we're trying to make this our big fundraiser, so we're pushing for people who don't want to come out, where it's probably going to sell out pretty quickly. For people who can't come out or don't want to come out, we're kind of starting some new things with pushing the sponsoring rounds, and where it's the holidays, if your family's looking to kind of make a donation in lieu of toys and gifts, to do different levels of sponsorship and funding some small grants.
And we all saw what they can do last month when we saw the paperwork. So that was it.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, anyone have anything else? All right, could I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
We're done.